Good morning, brothers and sisters. My name is Graham Harrison, and I live in Bakersfield, California. I've been asked to share a portion of my story, and so I just want you to know that I feel really blessed and really honored to be able to do this morning. And I hope it blesses you, and more importantly, I hope it brings glory and honor to our Father. And so I want to start off by showing you a picture. This is my wife, Angela. Angela and I met in college. We dated for 4 years. We're married for 19 years, and she's such an incredible woman. I felt so blessed to have her as my wife. And but in 2009, we started to experience some health issues. It was really hard on us, and we had just moved to Seattle. Angela felt a lump in her breast, and so we went to the doctor and had it biopsied, and we found out that day that Angela had a stage 1 breast cancer. And though it was stage 1, it was a really aggressive cancer. It was a 9 out of 9 on the Bloom-Richardson scale, and so they suggested that we get really aggressive with the treatment. And so she had a double mastectomy done. She had chemotherapy. She was on a drug called Herceptin for a year, and then after all that was done, she had 7 months worth of reconstructive surgery. So from start to finish, it was about a 2-year journey for us to go through that cancer battle. And I remember it just being a difficult time. And I remember after all was done, though I had family up in Seattle area, Angela's family was in Bakersfield. And she's like, I really miss my family and I'd like to be back by them. And so we moved back to Bakersfield and bought a house, started remodeling that. And, you try as best as you can to go on with life post-cancer, right? Around the end of 2011, Angela started experiencing really bad headaches. She started slurring her speech. She started behaving in ways she normally wouldn't behave. Just something wasn't right. And those things got progressively worse and worse. And so I took her into her primary care physician in January of that year, and he suggested we get an MRI done. And then within about an hour of getting that MRI, he gave us a call and said, hey, Graham, you need to get Angela to the emergency room. She's got a mass on her brain, and it's causing pressure. Unless we relieve that pressure, she's not going to make it. And so I took her to the emergency room. We found out soon after they did a biopsy that Angela had what is called a glioblastoma. And not that any cancer diagnosis is a good one, but a glioblastoma is probably one of the worst you can get, because from diagnosis to death is anywhere from 3 to 9 months typically. And so that started a year-long journey of 4 different craniotomies, chemotherapy, radiation, and it didn't matter what we tried. Unfortunately, the cancer kept coming back, and it got harder and harder for her to bounce back after each one of those craniotomies. And I'll never remember, like it was yesterday, we were sitting in her oncologist's office, and she just looked at me and she just said, Graham, I just can't do this anymore. Then I went home that afternoon, and I made plans with hospice to be able to come in and manage Angela's pain for the last few weeks of her life. And Angela went to be with Jesus in April of 2013. I'd like to share with you something I wrote in my journal at that time, because it explains, puts into words just what I was feeling at that time. And it says, these 3 years we spent fighting the cancer were some of the best and some of the worst times of my life. The best because I got to spend every single minute of every day with my wife. We were able to go to every single appointment and treatment together. I can't tell you how much of a blessing that was for me. It was the greatest honor of my life to be able to serve my wife in a time when she needed me most. And it was the worst time of my life because I can't adequately put into words the pain associated with seeing someone you love so much suffer so much. Now, I've been a Christian for 21 plus years, and I can honestly say that I am currently going through the most difficult time of my life. After 3 years of watching my wife fight for her life, I am mentally, physically, and spiritually depleted. It's often difficult to go home to an empty house. My best friend, my lover, and my soulmate is no longer there. In essence, I'm learning to live out a new norm. It is in times like these that you really come to an understanding of your level of faith. I think you never really know how strong your faith is until all that you know and hold dear is taken away from you. I prayed thousands of prayers, and so did so many others, for God to heal my wife. The scriptures are full of God's healing his children, and we believed he was going to do the same in our case. For reasons only he knows, he chose not to. Oftentimes, when something like this happens, the devil will come and attack, putting thoughts into our heads like, why didn't your God heal her? Was it because you did not have enough faith? How could a God of love allow her to suffer like that? And why would a God who loves you take her from you? You ever had those thoughts? A part of me is upset from God for not healing my wife. At times I feel let down. Another part of me knows he owes me nothing and has given me everything in Jesus. I know we live in a fallen world and our lives here on earth are but of a blink of an eye. The conclusion is I do not know why this all happened, but I know God knows. I also know that nothing happens in our life that doesn't first get sifted through the loving hands of our Father. He is the only one who can use suffering as a tool for blessing. So I continue to go to him and I ask him to heal my brokenness and to use it for his glory. I trust him that he will see me through this difficult time. At the end of the day, he owes me nothing and I owe him everything. He sacrificed it all for me on the cross. God's word promises that he works all things for good for those who love him and are called according to his purposes. In faith, I stand on this promise. Though today I do not see the good yet, I know it's coming. As a result of our suffering, my perspective on life is changing. Where I used to be so consumed with the cares of this world, I feel God is preparing a more eternal perspective and focus in me. I'm so thankful to him that my wife is with him in paradise. She's no longer in pain, no longer suffering. Though it aches beyond words how much I miss her, I'm excited that one day we will be reunited. I'd like to share something I read the other day. To know that even his most distressing dealings with me are for my deepest spiritual gain is to be able to say in the midst of bereavement, sorrow, pain, and loss, the Lord gave and the Lord taketh away. May the name of the Lord be praised. Job 1:21. See God in all things and know He causes all things to work for good. You know, I wrote those words in my journal during that time period of when I was in deep grief. Though I wrote them, to me, they're an example of God's faithfulness and his love for me because it was the Holy Spirit writing those words through me to remind me that my healing was going to come through him. And it has. And really, he used the journey, and the journey is so special to me because he used the journey during that time period to heal me and to heal my broken heart. I got a call from a complete stranger by the name of Scott Garrison and invited me to go to a journey group. And I didn't want to do it, but I said yes. Because God knows exactly what we need when we need it. And he knew I needed to be a part of that group. And it's through that group, not that I didn't know, but he reminded me over and over again just how much he loves me. That God cares, that God knows everything about us, that God is willing and God is able. And it's Scott and those brothers who came alongside of me in my time of need and just continued to love on me and point me back to our Father. Because I knew my healing was going to come through him. And I'd like to say, you know, if you've watched enough Disney that, you know, the healing went on and lived happily ever after. But we know that's not the case in our lives. We're going to have continued trials. And we're going to have difficulties here on this world. Jesus has promised us that. But he's also promised that he's going to help us to overcome that. And he's going to somehow use those as tools for blessing. And after a period of time of healing my heart, I was introduced to these two girls on one of the soccer teams that I ended up coaching. And then I was introduced to their mother, Heather. And then Heather and I got married in July of 2017. And I'm so thankful to be able to say that I've had two amazing marriages and two amazing loves in my life. But we've continued to have trials, and we continue to have difficult times. Before I met Heather, Heather had thyroid cancer about 6 years before I met her, and she had her thyroid removed, and she had radiation iodine treatment. And then about a month after we started dating, I called her one day, and she was having a lot of pain in her back. And I kept calling throughout the day, and it kept getting worse and worse. And so finally that night I called her to see how she was doing, and she's like, it's not getting any better. So I went over, I picked her up, and I took her to the emergency room. And we found out that night they told us she had appendicitis, and I guess the normal protocol for appendicitis now is they allow it to burst and they go in and clean it up. But we're thankful that night that they didn't do that. They actually went in and removed her appendix, and when they did that, they found a mass in the inside of it. And they did a biopsy, found out it was cancer. And it's one of those cancers that when it spreads, it goes to the organs and to the lungs. And so they did scans of her body and found a large mass like that large on her lung. And so as soon as she was able to heal from the appendix surgery, they went in and they removed the mass from her lung and a portion of her lung. And we're thankful that that ended up coming back as non-cancerous. And then in the beginning of January of 2019, Heather too felt a lump in her breast. And so we went in and we had that biopsied and found out that it was stage 2 breast cancer. And so that started a year-long journey where, she had surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, and I'm happy to say, I feel blessed to say that 2 weeks ago she went in for her 6-month follow-up, and everything looks good, and she's clean as of today. I'm thankful to our Father for that. And I'm also thankful for our Father that this time around has been so different for me. Looking back at my journal and going through it the first time with Angela, my journal was filled with questions of like, why, God? Why have you allowed this to happen to us? And through that difficult time with Angela, God has revealed some amazing truths to me. And one of those truths is that, control is an illusion, right? And I don't have control over my life. And I think we all kind of know that, but we're all really one diagnosis away from really, truly understanding that truth. That God's the only one in control. And if God allows something into our life, He's got a greater plan and greater purpose for it. And we might not necessarily see the proofs of that this side of heaven, but we'll definitely see those proofs the eternity side. The side that is going to be for forever. And then also, too, I'd always prayed for a deep faith. And I thought I had a deep faith. And after I lost Angela, God really showed me just how shallow my faith was. Because it was so dependent upon my circumstances and upon Him answering my prayers in the way that I wanted them answered. And as Pete McKenzie said, he says that God was leading him into deeper waters. And He was doing the same thing for me. He was actually answering my prayer of drawing me into a deeper faith by using a tragedy to do that. He used that tragedy as a tool of blessing. And only He can do that. And so I'll just kind of close today with a word of encouragement. And it's a question that, I thought of, I've been thinking about recently, and I shared with another group. It said, would it be worth what we are going through if just one person came to know Jesus and God's faithfulness through our trial? I had a lot of conversations with Angela, and I know she knew it was worth it. And I know a lot of people have come to know Him or drawn closer to Him because of what she went through. But I also know today that I know it's worth it. So I don't know where you're at. I don't know if you're struggling with something. But I know if you are, press into our Father. He's seen every tear you've cried. He's heard every prayer. And He's there. And He wants to use that to draw you closer to Him. And He wants to use that to witness to the world of His love and His faithfulness So I hope this brings you encouragement today. God bless you.